Chris Moiser is a man with zookeeping powers who owns a zoo, and it's a very special zoo. It's not your average bog standard zoo, with remarkable animals in it, like a monkey that has been trained to tip a packet full of golden grahams onto a shrimp, a bearded crab called Alan Pearson, who's got a flag of Morocco attached to his eye pole, and my own personal favourite, a little squirrel called Turkish Pete, who's been trained to bludgeon wasps to death with a jug handle. He's brought with him a suitcase full of puppies, and all of the puppies have got the faces of 19th century foreign ministers, and the puppy with the face of Lord Aberdeen is going to be speaking at length in Lithuanian.
Chris Moiser!
Good evening, thank you folks. When I was invited to talk here last year, we turned up very late, very tired, having taken over the zoo about 3 days or 4 days, I think it was previously. Well, sadly, we've turned up very late and very tired, having run it for a year. It's still a 16-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week job. We had a holiday, 28 hours in Torquay, during which time we actually shot into Kent's Cavern to have a look at the gift shop there, just to see how a posh gift shop looks. And we learnt, and ours is looking a little bit better. So, the last year, and the CFZ involvement. As you walk around this building, you'll see the posters, and you'll see the posters showing Odo the gibbon. Odo still continues to wake us up at first light, and on the mornings he doesn't. The dog does, because the dog's worried that Odo's not well if he's not calling at first light. So that tends to lead to early mornings. Now, if you look at those posters as well, there is the logo underneath, which was an entirely CFZ production. We were too tired actually trying to feed the animals, and John, or one of the gang, came up with "Welcome to our world."
It was me.
It was you.
Come on, it's that such a crass statement. It had to be me, didn't it?
Well, we'll come back to that in a minute, because never has it become so more apt as it has in the last few days, which some of you may be aware of, others won't be. Now, whenever you run a zoo of any sort, there are always some animals that become your favourites, and some animals that you're really not bothered about. They're just one of the exhibits. They're not of any conservation interest, they're not of any great biological interest. They're just good looking, they do the job, they sit in the paddock, they come out when the public are there, they go to bed at night, they don't eat you out of house and home, they don't get veterinary problems, and so on. And there are others who you love dearly, but they become right pains. And so I thought, for a few minutes tonight, we'll tell you about murder, mayhem, and maras. For those of you who don't know, first of all, Tropic Aquaria is a small zoo based on a 1933 transmitter station built by the BBC at a place called Watchet in Somerset. The whole idea of building it there was that by transmitting a medium wave signal from there, you can cover the whole of South Wales. And there's a similar one somewhere for North Wales. You don't have to have hundreds of little relay stations, you've just got one big powerful station and it covers the whole of South Wales. Originally they used to generate power on site. After the 1940s it was wired in. So it meant they didn't have to have big diesel engines and generators. They moved the transmitters back and left the front of the building empty. Stayed empty for 20 years, and then back in 1987, a couple of local investors had the idea of building a tropical house there. Because additionally to the size of the hall with a big skylight to it, there was a lot of hot air going to waste from BBC Wales. I'm not being rude about BBC, well there is a lot of hot air on BBC Wales, particularly around election times, but this was as a result of the transmitters being not entirely efficient. And the idea was to duct the hot air from BBC Wales through to the tropical hall as a cheap source of heating, which has happened and continues, hopefully, to happen for the foreseeable future. In 2007, the place came up for sale. Well, that's what we thought. In fact, it looks as it's been on the market since about 2004, but quietly. And we came along, and partly through CFZ involvement, we're just about able to scrape the money together and bought it this time last year. Anyway, that's the rough background. We have 5.5 acres of gardens and a listed building, and we've got several paddocks in those gardens. We are slowly renovating cages, which were at a pretty ropey stage by the time we moved in. And we have, in the last year, partly through John's able work on the telephone, acquired a Prevost squirrel, which is a female from Newquay that, for reasons best known to the keeping staff, and you've got to be a bit strange to be a zookeeper, has been called Trevor. Well, I suppose, you know, Trapol and Penn are all names of Cornish men, and women, equal rights. But we can make it into Trevora. What John doesn't know is that following contact with the zoological garden in the north of England, I'm hoping to be able to pick up a male.
Oh, good.
To go with Trevora shortly.
Is it Mingo now, is it?
No, it isn't.
Ah, because I was talking to them about one as well.
Oh, right, okay. So hopefully we'll have a pen. We've also, in the last few days, about a month now ago, acquired a serval. For those of you that don't know, a Southern African spotted cat, about which there's quite a bit of folklore. And this guy was actually born in Norfolk. Jane went up to pick him up. We dropped some of the curassows that we bred off at the same time. And he was transferred into his new cage yesterday. We've got a sand surround on the outside of the cage to make it look a bit like African laterite. But in fact, it's jolly useful if you're doing big cat research, because we'll wait till we've got some good ones and we'll do some plaster casts for references from there. We can also take hairs for DNA reference from him as well. It's a lovely cat, a lovely exhibit, quite happy to be seen out by the public. He's not at all bothered or shy, and to that extent is much better than some of the Southern African cats, which tend to be a bit shy. Anyway, Mara. We, after moving in, got what I think is a world record. The zoo licence appeared in the post on Tuesday, and on Thursday I'm phoning the local authority to report an escape. It's the Mara. It's a South American rodent, maybe this high, that long, totally innocuous, perfectly harmless, but easily recognisable as not something that should be wandering around the Somerset countryside. He gave himself up, not discreetly as I would hope, but outside a pub in the middle of, watch it, 6 o'clock on a Friday night. Stuck in a creek, just shattered, not able to move any further.
So he was literally up the creek?
He was up the creek, without a paddle. And from the smell, it was that sort of creek as well, but we won't go into that. Now, we jumped in the car with a box and net and got down there. First problem, he's in the creek and the creek's 10 feet below road level. Not to worry, the assistant Coast Guard comes along together with the community support officer, and we borrow a ladder from the pub. I'm just climbing over the wall when a large lady grabs me and says, "Don't you get involved, I've called the owners." So I sort of looked in the face and said, "Oh, actually, I'm the owner." "Oh, I'm ever so sorry, I used to work at Tropic Aquarium. I phoned Steve." "It's okay, we'll deal with it." Went down there, put him back in the box, and anyway, the Coast Guard was able to log it as one of the strangest incidents they've ever been involved with. The pub landlord put up a poster advertising Tropic Aquarium, and everything was happy ever after. January. It's the murder and mayhem time. We found half a Mara in the paddock. Well, we found 9.5 Mara in the paddock. Something had eaten the front end of one. Interesting. More meat gone than a fox could manage. Weren't sure what caused it. Now the paddock overlaps with the taper. The Mara can go in with the taper, so we had a quick look around there. And we found footprints, and the footprints were bigger than fox, smaller than our Pyrenean mountain dog, and no, it couldn't be, not with my luck. It wasn't going to be a big cat, it was canid. Following night, Same happened again, half a mara the following morning. We lost 4 in the end over 4 days before we actually caught them all up and moved them. Got one of the local hunters in. They said, well, it's a fox. It's the mother of all foxes. And even then he couldn't come up with any reason how he managed to eat so much meat. And he sort of explained, well, it's a fox, but there's a badger following up and eating as well. What we actually think happened is we think it was a dog, either feral dog or a dog that was getting out, going and eating out and then going home again. And we had an informal tip-off that had happened. It may have also had the odd sheep and that it was being, the owners were being told it would be shot if it's caught, which would be lawful. Anyway, that's part 2 of the mara. We get the mara back in the pen, everything's quieted down, we've fixed the fences, etc, etc. And what happens then? Well, we find one morning we've got a baby mara. Isn't that nice? Well, it makes up for some of the 4 we've lost. However, when we purchased the place, there was a statement to the effect that all the mara had been neutered. Yes. They'd been taken to the vet and all the chaps had had the bits dealt with. So, how come we've got a baby? This was only resolved a couple of days ago when the previous head keeper came back to ask if we got any jobs. No, I mean, came back socially because he was in the area at the time and thought he'd just pop in and see how the animals were doing. And, oh yes, yeah, we did catch them all up. But one was out. And he came back a few days later. Didn't anybody think to take him to the vet? Oh no, we were busy. Okay. Well, it's been busy because we found another one since then as well. And we're now trying to work out just how many we've got and may also be expecting. It's not a problem, they're lovely animals. It quietens down again, and then what happens? Saturday morning, last week, Richard's there, phone call from the police. What time was it, Jane? About 7:30. We get it relayed by the police control room, someone driving up the road, somewhere on the A39, a mara. Well, no, it wasn't a mara. It was a capybara. She was sure it was a capybara. Just a little bit bigger than a rabbit, weighing 180 pounds. Well, I'm considerably heavier and bigger than a rabbit, and I weigh less than 180 pounds. So have a think about that one. However, we know the fence on the capybara enclosure isn't the best, and it's going to cost us £1,000 to renew it. So I grab Richard, we go up to the road. And we're up there, police Land Rover comes along. They've obviously had the call, must be a quiet morning in Minehead. Well, it must be, they don't get up too much time in Minehead, and particularly on Saturdays. So we have a quick chat with them, confirm we're both looking for the same thing. They say they'll go up the road, sweep back, see if they can find anything, and we'll head off in the other direction, which we do. They come back down the road, pull up. We have a quick chat, they haven't seen anything. Then a car pulls in front of us. One of the officers goes to have a quick word, see whether or not they've seen something strange, and they're coming to tell us. No, it was shorter and sharper and to the point. My wife's having a baby, help. Now, I didn't know, apparently there's an official police way of dealing with this. They tell the father or the driver, as long as it isn't the expectant mother, to drive as fast as they can to the hospital. They don't get them in the police car because it delays things. That's the official record. Apparently it takes a long time to clean the car afterwards and put it out of action for a week, but that's another story. And that isn't the official one at all. So father heeds the advice, jumps back in the car and starts to drive, pulls in 200 yards further up the road. Those of you who don't know, Jane, the other partner...
Hang on a sec, Chris. David, you've got to follow spot.
Yeah.
Can you put a spot on Jane? Because she is the heroine. Oh, Jane, I've been planning this for weeks.
What do you mean the baby was only born last week?
All will be revealed. I have £300,000. Yay! Jane
at that stage, is in the capybara field, sorry, capybara, I'm on brain at the moment, in the Mara field, desperately counting them, hoping that 5 and 1 makes 6, and it doesn't, it's 5.5. That's not an eaten one, that's just a baby. And yes, we're one missing, and I'm suddenly on the call. Get up here fast with any up and gynae equipment you can gather. We've got a baby on the way. So she's used to the hospital situation, people panicking and expecting 4 hours later baby will be born. I go back in to open the nearest gate to get her up there faster, and by the time she gets to the car, within 2 minutes, baby's head pops out, then the baby pops out. I get back with more medical equipment and I'm sat on the floor, opening packets of bandages just in case there's a problem. There's a policeman stood by the car door above me, who keeps on repeating, I was due off at 7. I never thought this was happening. I only offered to come because I thought I might see a strange animal. They don't train us for this, you know. They don't train us for this. And then a few seconds later, I was due off at 7. I only came because I thought I might see a strange animal. Anyway, the baby's born. Everything's fine. The baby's starting to look the right colour. And Mum's starting to breathe a bit more normally. Ambulance turns up. The only thing the ambulance, paramedic and the policeman can agree is none of them have ever seen a baby born in the car before. Jane's in a panic because having trained in theatres, she's never delivered a baby normally. She's only used to doing it with sharp implements and loads of stitches afterwards. So anyway, the paramedics drop the instruments all over the floor, pick them up, and then sort of cut the cord, and the baby's sort of attacked the ambulance, and then suddenly the paramedic isn't there, the policeman isn't there, so Jane and I end up having to take the mother out of the car and put her on the stretcher. And ambulance goes. Special constable, I was due off at 7, I better go. My wife will kill me, she won't believe this, you know. So they disappear, and we're left there with the sort of the debris, the leftover first aid stuff, and the rest of it. Now fortunately, being a zoo, we've actually got clinical waste bags and the rest of it, so we bagged everything up and went back to the zoo. Now, those of you who've been through childbirth, and those of you who are planning on going through childbirth or training as medics in some form, we've always been trained there are 3 stages of labour. There's the first stage, there's the second stage, which is when the baby's born, there's the 3rd stage when the rest of it is sorted out, and there's actually a 4th stage.
Is that new labour?
No. No, there's another word for that, which I'm not going to use, but it is something to do with ongoing. The 4th stage of labour is when everybody who really wasn't involved sits down, drinks sweet tea and congratulates themselves.
Just like new labour.
We just moved into the 4th stage of labour when the phone goes. It's the police press office. How do we spell our names? I thought I was fast on the marks with getting out press releases, but I've never seen one as fast as that. Talk about beating us to it. Anyway, the press release came out. Bear in mind the baby was born on Saturday. The press release actually came out late on Monday, after somebody else had phoned, 1 to confirm the spellings of names, and 2 to confirm that I think that there had been some police officers present. Now the interesting thing is, when it came out, apparently the special constable delivered the baby, and Western Morning News carried it. Later on that day we had ITV turn up, who said, are you going to the press conference then? No, we haven't been invited. Oh, we were, and they've withdrawn the invite. Apparently ITV had upset the chief con of Avon and Somerset, and they didn't realise that ITV West is the same as ITV West Country. But then somebody did, so they were disinvited. And ITV said, oh, hang on, this sounds a bit strange. We've had a chat with the mum and dad, and really the special constable and the constable wasn't that involved, was he? Well, no, he was there. He passed a pair of gloves, and he was sort of a comfort. Yeah, he was a nice chap, but he was there. And anyway, the ITV report sort of put the limelight slightly back on Jane, but also filmed Jane. And we got a lovely quote out of it because Jane was wearing the Tropic Aquaria t-shirt. And as we said at the beginning, the logo that John came up with, and I can't think he anticipated this. Welcome to our world took on a whole new meaning. I now have the problem, which I shall hopefully inform you how I dealt with in 12 months' time, how to log on to the International Species Index system and record the birth of one human on zoo property. Is it an endangered species? Do I have to microchip the baby? And will I require an Article 10 certificate from DEFRA if it goes on breeding loan elsewhere? These are all questions that will probably end up on Panorama or something similar. Sorry, I've gone over. Any questions about the zoo or whatever, ask John or ask the others, we better disappear. Thanks for your attention.
Chris Moiser is actually the only person apart from me and Richard who has been at appeared on stage at every single Weird Weekend since the beginning. I was always going to think of some excuse to flash a spotlight on Jane, but she doesn't like being in the spotlight. As it is, you go around delivering babies, that gave me the perfect excuse. But I think that Chris, Jane and Karina, who are the three owners of Tropiquaria, have done a fantastic thing. Because zoos are an endangered species. Because in the current political climate, zoos are getting more and more frowned upon by a bunch of bloody idiots who really should know better. I think what Chris, Jane and Karina have done over the last year, and I know some of you over the years have seemed to think that I own a zoo. I don't. That's the next best thing. I married one. But I think what Chris, Jane and Karina have done over the last year is absolutely fantastic. But the one thing which Christopher has not mentioned is that now we've got a zoo. When we find new animals, we've got some put the bloody things. We've already got 4. Did you find I've got 3 or 4 at the moment of those weird frogs.
3 or 4?
We've got either 3 or 4. They think one is very elusive. I had a phone call from it was Graham in the room. Graham Smith. Was he disappeared off to eat things? You all know Graham, the guy who was on the...
Still with the bugs.
He was on the bug stall, been on the bug stall the last 2 days. His brother phoned me and said, "Here, John, there's some really weird frogs in this dealer in London." And the guy in London had actually thought he was buying African bullfrogs, which are quite a well-known species. He said, "I don't know what these bloody things are, because they're not African bullfrogs. They very, very much, don't they, Richard? They very much look like young Goliath frogs. But that's not quite right. I hope they are Goliath frogs. If we managed to get Goliath frogs to the British Zoo for the first time since God knows when, that would be a fantastic thing. But Bernard Hoyt once said that there were lost worlds everywhere. And since I have taken on the mantle of the bloke who basically negotiates his way around the shady world of animal dealers to try to get some really, really good exhibits for the zoo and to try and get things that otherwise would probably pine away and die until it's tank. I'm realising how little of the world we know, and I would not be at all surprised if the first major successes of finding new species in the CFZ happened because Bernard Hoyt was right, there are lost worlds everywhere, and some of them in warehouses and Croydon. Stuff is happening all the time. And Tropiquaria is the only, as far as I know, the only zoo in the country with a major commitment to cryptozoology and new species. I'm very, very proud to be involved, and I am very, very grateful for the chance to work together with Karina, Chris and Jane on such an exciting project. All of you who bought tickets this weekend do get a discount at the zoo, and I strongly, strongly, strongly urge you all to go see the zoo and to get involved. Now, Chris, you've got to go home in the morning, you're going to go with enough by kittens. Chris Moiser, Jane Bassett and Karina Downs, thank you very much. Oh, by the way, Richard's head zookeeper, I forgot to say that. So it really is a CFZ involvement. Now